I think the real reason they cast Sonequa Martin Green in Space Jam 2 is because for Discovery, time keeps on slipping, slipping, slipping into the future. Sorry for that. Alrighty, interwebs, and welcome to my review of Star Trek Discovery Season 2, Episode 11, Perpetual Infinity. So, a fairly solid episode for Star Trek Discovery this week. So this episode felt like the flip side of the coin of last week's episode. This week's episode, very much like last week's episode, was a lot of story setup and trying to get us all moving into the final section of the season. But unlike last episode, where I thought a lot of stuff in the execution just felt wonky or weird, here everything really worked for me. This episode, again, isn't one that I'm like, whoo, that was awesome, I'm so excited. There's some really great parts to it. But I thought that this was a very good foundational episode. It kind of did everything that I wanted. It sort of helped me understand a little bit more of the stakes going on. We kind of understood what more is going on with sort of the AI and in the future and what was going on with the Red Angel. Set up a couple more mysteries for us to deal with into the future. Sort of gave clear motivations and sort of a look at what's going to happen. But also took the time to be very, very slow this episode and really deliver some really hard-hitting, good character moments. Especially between Burnham, Georgiou, Tyler, and Burnham's mom as well. And also even a little bit of Spock in there as well, on top of all of that. Just trying to lay the foundation for what I hope will be a really jam-packed and sort of exciting next 3 episodes. Because these past 2 have just been kind of a lot of like talk. And I'm not someone who's like, I need action and violence and da-da-da-da-da and like fast-moving beats. But I kind of like, we're rolling into the end of the season. So I really hope that this is sort of the last one where it's kind of slower and that we really kind of start picking things up, which is surprising for me. Hearing myself say that is actually a really good thing for Star Trek Discovery. I think the fact that I'm feeling that Star Trek Discovery has slowed its pace so much so that I'm actually kind of want it to pick up is actually really strong and goes to show how much time these past few episodes have really focused on small character beats. Now, not always effective, but this episode I think really, really nailed that home. With the change in showrunners for the second half of the season, if this is evident of what these showrunners can do when they're sort of picking up the pieces of the previous showrunner's story. So they're just sort of like, oh, we're going to sort of take the pieces of this fast action ideas that are going on here, and then we're going to take it slow down and see what it means to the characters. I think that we are in for a really strong rest of this season, hopefully, as long as the payoff feels really great. And then a really strong season 3, where I'm really curious. I wanted to see a season of Star Trek Discovery where we sort of get the same showrunners all the way through and sort of feel a story from beginning to end, have some sort of authorial sort of stamp on it. That being said, this episode is indicative of why I'm excited moving forward. There are some concerns, but it's more just concerns moving forward rather than concerns with this episode. So solid episode, not something I'm going to write home about and be like, yeah, but a very strong episode and a marked improvement from last episode, where I thought was good, had some good moments, but just had some wonky execution. Here, I think execution was perfect. So before I get into the nitty-gritty of my review, I just want to take a moment to ask you to subscribe to my channel. If you like these Star Trek Discovery reviews every episode, as well as my cool analysis of sci-fi geek topics every single Friday, click that subscribe button. It would mean a lot to me, and honestly, you'll get a ton of really cool content out of it. I have some really cool stuff, and I'm just excited to keep giving it to you. And if you want to help make that cool stuff even better, please give some money on my Patreon page. Any small amount helps. I just really want to take this YouTube channel to the next level, and you can be a part of doing that. But no matter what you do, whether you're just watching, whether you're subscribing, whether you're giving money to my Patreon, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it, and let's have some fun talking about Star Trek Discovery. So the episode starts off with a flashback to Doctari Alpha and Burnham as a kid, and we get to see the moment where Burnham's sort of locked in the closet and her mom goes back in time. I thought this scene was fairly effective. It probably honestly was the weakest part of the episode for me, just because this is supposed to be an extremely traumatic moment for Burnham. We've seen it several times, a sort of like harrowing experience locked in that closet, and this scene felt very clean and easy to a degree, and I get that like it's terrifying from Burnham's point of view, and now we're kind of seeing things from the mother's point of view. It's got to have been a harrowing experience for Burnham to sort of have Klingons come in, slaughter people, and kill your mother, presumably. But it just felt a little bit too removed from Burnham's feelings in that moment. She's just kind of pushed in the closet, and then the mother goes and does her thing. I would have liked a moment of like the Klingons like killing somebody, or just something to make it a little bit darker, to really sell that like sort of PTSD moment that Burnham really carries from this all the way through the series. Though the thing I did really like, and it's sort of a theme that goes throughout the whole episode here, they set up really Burnham and her mother having very similar interests and flaws. I really like seeing Burnham looking into the telescope and really seeing that she has this inspiration for outer space exploration, and that's something that's always informed her character. And we see that her mom has that exact same feeling, and as we see throughout the episode, she has a lot of the same flaws and desires as Burnham, just taken to an nth degree. It really shows like what someone who feels like they have to shoulder the responsibility of everyone and not actually sitting and dealing with the moment-to-moment pressures of life, and like actually sitting with your feelings and emotions can do to you. But I'll get into that in a little bit. But I think there's a really good mirroring character arc here. So we go back to Discovery, and we have Burnham waking up in the sickbay, and we get Culber back in his uniform, and we later learn a little bit later that he finally took back his commission to help Burnham out. Probably happened last episode. I wish we kind of got a moment for that and sort of just didn't happen between scenes. I appreciate that that's sort of what his reasoning was, that he does care for Burnham, and I like getting that sort of like in a little interpersonal sense for him. Honestly, we haven't gotten much of his relationships with anybody outside of Stamets and a little bit with Tyler, but mostly he's just sort of there to do doctory things and then have a relationship with Stamets, which was fine in season 1 because he just was a guest star in that season. This season, if they're going to make him a main cast member, I like that they're sort of like subtly building out these relationships and giving him his own scenes like we saw last episode. I could use a little bit more with him, stuff separate from Stamets, but overall, I'm generally liking the way they're going with Culber here. But the big important thing for the scene is we get Burnham reacting to the fact that she learns that her mom is the Red Angel. And I thought Sonequa Martin-Green's performance in the scene was pitch perfect. We really get her sense of like, no, you're lying to me. This just denial. It read so real to me. Like she's like instantly just like, no, you're joking. And then you just see it hit her and just feel this grief. It really was just superbly done by Sonequa Martin-Green. And then Burnham gets these sort of angel data logs so she can sort of look through what her mother was doing. And then we get a really cool scene with Leland being sort of trapped by control. I loved the hologram scenes here, this hologram bit here with like it jumping between different Discovery characters, because it was just very unsettling to see how these characters just sort of like staring in the middle distance, be very emotionless. And I like the explanation that the hologram can do Vulcans really well because they are sort of cold and emotionless, but that it has trouble with humans. That makes perfect sense to me, and I really kind of like that it needs Leland to be able to do that, and sort of it's not relying on this crutch of like, ooh, holograms can do everything sort of thing. The only thing I will say with Control, this whole episode, I'll just sort of put it here, is I like the idea of an evil AI. It works for me, I'm interested in it, and it's intrigued me. The problem is we are getting very close to the end of the season, and I still really don't know why Control wants to do these things. It's just sort of like relying on this trope of Control wants to destroy all life in the galaxy because Control is an AI. And that kind of feels like blah to me. It just feels like too presumptuous. Like we've gotten portrayals of AI that are much deeper than that. Like even something like Ultron in Age of Ultron, which was not a great movie, but just we got a sense of why it wanted what it wanted in that movie, and James Spader had the charisma out the ass for that. But there was just at least a sense of motivation. And Control, I don't have any sense of why it wants to do anything. So it kind of feels like a lackluster villain at this point. And I like it as an idea, and I like how it's being executed in the moment, but I just wish I had a little bit more of a sense of what Control wants. So I really hope we get that in the next episode or two. It really needs it very badly to sort of make me care as much about that side of things. So that's sort of a negative going on here. But the scene was executed very well. And then we sort of get a really cool sequence of Burnham looking through her mom's logs. And I loved the point of view shot of her time jump going wrong. Absolutely, it was just a really cool shot. It sort of made you feel like, oh shit, I'm lost. I don't know where I am. She got pulled 950 years into the future. And we sort of get this idea of she's trying to get back to the present. She can't because the anchor keeps pulling her back to 950 years in the future. And also she starts to feel this need to like protect everybody because control is taking over and destroying everything. So I really like that. It sort of gave you a little bit more into her headspace, which is much needed for a character we haven't seen at all until this episode, really. So it really kind of made me see her point of view and sort of empathize with her like fear and feeling of helplessness and like wanting to gain that control back, no pun intended. And then we sort of get this ticking clock idea of a tug of war with the universe, that the universe wants to, or time wants to tug Burnham's mom back into the future. They're trying to hold her here. So that sort of like sets up this ticking clock idea going on. Then we get Leland coming up on the bridge. I really liked how Leland was just very stiff and you could see this confidence in him. Like before, Leland's always had this like doubt within him. You could always see the actor playing him with like this like lack of confidence in himself, which is very interesting. So to see him like come out and be like, this is what we're doing, you really got the sense that he was under control by control without it feeling like I am an AI, just through the actor's performance. I don't know the actor's name who plays Leland, but very strong. Tyler and Giorgio sort of feeling like something's off about him, but not enough that I'm going to say something yet. And then we get a great sequence where this sort of Burnham feeling sort of alone and by herself. And I love the time-lapse shot of her like walking through the corridors and everyone spinning around her and going much faster. Really, really interesting use of cinematography choice there, and really sort of hammering home this idea that Burnham really feels lost. Again, continuing that sort of arc of her character from last episode. She really feels untethered right now, and you really get a sense of that through both the acting and the cinematography here. Just really, really well done. We also learned that Burnham's mom is living on New Eden, and she saved the New Eden colonists because she wanted to use it as a test to see if she could actually change the future. And she can. So they were just a test, and now she's actually living on that planet 950 years in the future. Makes sense. I like that sort of explanation. Then we learn Burnham's mom does not want to talk to Burnham. She wants to talk to Pike. Pike sort of fights back, but Pike makes the good decision to not let Burnham talk to her. We get this good scene between Pike and Burnham's mom. I really loved her saying, like, you know, you're a ghost to me. You know, I know you've been dead for so many long years. And she sort of hints at the events of the menagerie about Pike's accident. And it also caused me to question, was she the one that caused the Enterprise to go down? Curious to see how that plays out, how the Enterprise, because I feel like the Enterprise will have to come back into this somehow. I mean, why else would you know, have number one show up? Why would you have it sort of out of commission and sort of set that sort of Chekhov's gun? But we also get this little hint that Burnham's mom does not know about the red signals. So what is that about? There might be a third variable going on here. So I like that little like tease that there's still a little bit more that we need to figure out here. So, and also Burnham's mom says like, you need to delete the sphere data because that's what Control needs to get the ability to kill all life in the galaxy. Bit convoluted there. It needs all of that data to be able to become sentient. Again, this is why I really need Control's motivation. So is Control from the future trying to make its present self sentient so that it can become the AI that it is in the future? Or is Control the AI that exists now from the present that's trying to become sentient to get to that future thing? I'm a little bit confused about, again, Control's motivation and what exactly it wants and why it wants it. So that's, I think, really the biggest weak point here. But we just know that we need to destroy the sphere data or get it out of here so that Control doesn't get it, is really the main point being told. I don't exactly get why or how it fits into Control's schemes. And I need that piece going forward. I think that's the biggest weakness that we have so far, is just need to know what the hell is going on with Control. And I also liked the scene where Burnham's being told that she can't talk to her mother. I like that a lot because you really get the sense of like, again, Burnham's feeling alone and like having no one on her side during this entire sequence. And she's really fighting this, but she's trying to maintain her composure. Like, no, I'm not going to argue from a kid wanting to see her mother. I'm going to argue from sort of a logical standpoint, but even that's failing her. And then we learned that the reason that Spock was perfect for the Red Angel to contact him was because of his unique mixture of Vulcan and human emotional setup, as well as the fact that he is dyslexic. Not entirely sure how I feel about that. It feels a little bit convenient about like, oh, of all the people in the universe, Spock's the only one. Kind of feels a little bit like a letdown. I like this idea of like, oh, it was something he saw as a flaw in him that actually led him to being the perfect person. I really like that, but they didn't really you don't really see Spock grappling with that as much as I feel he could have, which is fine. Spock's not like the main character here, and I get that, but I really think they could have nailed that a little bit harder, just to make me like feel what Spock's going through there. I like that explanation. Kind of get to it at the end by him relating to Burnham through that, but I would have liked him grappling with it on his own for a minute, and we kind of got that in the scene. I just, you know, it didn't knock me out of the park. Burnham beams down to the planet, and I also like the little Hamlet quote in Burnham saying, "Hamlet, hell yeah." But then we get a really, really great scene between Burnham and her mom for the first time. Burnham's mom says, "This is meaningless. This is a meaningless moment. I've seen you die 100 times. I only can think of the bigger picture now." All really, really hard stuff. And you can see that hitting Sonequa. You know, she's really trying to emote and feel for her mom at the top. And then she's very much like getting angry at her. Just felt all very real between both of them. And again, sells this idea that they both have very similar flaws. That they both try to put all this responsibility on themselves and just are refusing to deal with the day-to-day minutia of emotion and what's right in front of them, and trying to connect with the people around them. They just were like, I have to do this. I'm going to push everyone away because I need to do the right thing. And that's something that her mom is doing to the nth degree. I really, really like this. I think that's really a cool theme that they're exploring. They're sort of exploring the criticism of Burnham being a Mary Sue, of being someone who always wants to take on this responsibility. And I really like how they're subverting it, questioning it, and sort of poking at it, this sort of criticism from season 1, and showing foils of characters who are basically feeling the exact same way, and sort of Spock being on the other side of things. With Spock being someone who feels lost and is finding his tether, where Burnham's mom is sort of like way out there, just being, I'm going to be this rock, I'm going to do the best for everybody, and I'm not going to feel anything and not take time to take care of myself. It's a really, 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 really strong theme that I think they're pulling between Spock, Burnham, and Burnham's mom. I think just that the three of them create this interesting sort of foils against each other. Then we got a scene that I call the Technobabble scene. So it was basically them all sort of meeting up in engineering, and like Stamets, Burnham, Spock, and everyone. And they basically technobabble in their way to describe sort of the end sit piece of the episode, which was they want to put the AI information into the angel suit and just send the angel suit into the future infinitely. So it'll be just keep going and going and going and going and going into the future ad nauseum. Really cool sort of like existential idea. I thought it was sort of cool. I wish we sort of got like a visual of that in some way, but it was an interesting concept to just think of, like this thing just being shoved so far in the future that it's just not going to matter anymore. It's gone. It's gone now. Then we have a really, really great scene of controlled Leland, no pun intended again, playing off of Georgiou's fear of losing power. Calculated move by Control, and very understanding of how to manipulate people. And I really liked how it was just playing off of Georgiou's fear of losing her power, of like wanting to be the most powerful person in the room, which is something we've seen throughout multiple episodes. She always manipulates things to make sure that she's the center of attention, she's the most powerful, that she's like, I don't care about anything, I don't worry about you people, I am the strongest. And Leland's manipulating that here, and also manipulating what he knows is her care of Burnham, which again comes back up in a minute. So I really, really, really well done manipulation of Georgiou's psychology, and I really like the writing of that, because it plays off of stuff that we've seen, but have never been told. Like, we never are told explicitly all these things about Georgiou, but this is playing off of them in such a really brilliant way. So it just really goes to show that, you know, as much as people may have problems with Discovery's plot, which I don't as much, I have some issues here and there, but I really think that the writers have a very strong sense of every character and their motivations and desires. Scenes like this work specifically because they know their characters, and they know how they've shown their characters to us, and then they can manipulate them in just interesting ways without it being obvious. Just very strong character writing throughout this whole episode. Then we get what I think is probably my favorite scene of the episode, where Georgiou goes and talks to Burnham's mom. And again, I like, this other type of foil of the two maternal figures in Burnham's life. Georgiou, who's someone who's not perfect, but is very much there, and Burnham's mom, who's been so detached from everything. These two women connecting over their love of Burnham, but also knowing that both of them have failed Burnham in interesting ways. And I really like Burnham's mom saying, thank you for saving her. And we get the sense of like, I know what you're capable of, which is such an interesting double entendre, because you get this idea of, yeah, Burnham's mom knows that she is capable of being a good person, but she also knows that she's capable of being a really terrible person, and we don't really know which one she means here, and I really liked that. I like this playing off of JoJo's moral ambiguity and showing that she can be a really good character or a really bad character, and she's sort of at this precipice of doing either, depending on how things go. And I think that's a really, really great setup for her character, especially going into the Section 31 series that we're probably going to get. This moral ambiguity of like, I could be good, I could be bad, but I don't know, is a great setup for a lead character in that type of show, of a Section 31 type show. And Burnham's mom saying basically, I want you to protect my daughter. Like, I know you will, but just asking her to do that just was very resonated. And we also got a hint, I don't know, maybe I misread this, but Burnham's mom said, mother to mother, I have a favor to ask you, implying that Georgiou is also a mother. Did she mean like, oh, she feels like a mother to Burnham? Or does she actually have a child? I don't necessarily know what they were going for there, but it's an interesting little hint, a possibility that Georgiou has a kid. And I wonder if Georgiou having a kid has a prime version of that child. Oh no, and I also got the reason that Georgiou goes down there is because she places a thing to sort of steal the data from the Red Angel and put it onto the Section 31 ship, which is what Leland wants because he's control. Then we sort of get Georgiou realizing that Leland is under control by Control, and she contacts Tyler. But I really liked Georgiou and Tyler working off of each other. Georgiou saying, if you ever betray me, I will kill you. And Tyler saying, I've already died once, so you're just telling me I'll have time to enjoy the scenery. I just love that very like confident, like Klingonness of Tyler in that scene. He's like, yeah, okay, bring it. And I also like the where she says, go and tell me what Leland likes to do in the dark. And Tyler saying, say please. Just, he is so ready to just give back to Georgiou. Everyone else is always uncomfortable around Georgiou. And I just like that Tyler just loves, he's like, he can give as much as he can receive. Then we get one final scene between Burnham and her mom. It played off of everything that had built before. It played off of Burnham feeling alone. It played off of Burnham's mom kind of having this sense of duty in her, but also how she's changed because of her conversation with Georgiou and wanting to open up more. I loved this scene between two of them because Burnham's mom finally opened up and said, I've been watching you your whole life and I really do care about you, but I've had to force myself not to because I felt like I've had this higher duty, which is exactly what Burnham does all the damn time. And so I like that sort of release of this and being like, no, we can have a moment to connect and we can make this work. And the fact that they have the same flaw puts them at odds with each other. Burnham wants to take responsibility for taking care of her mom, and her mom just wants to take responsibility for taking care of Burnham and the universe. So this sort of central character flaw that defines them both actually puts them at odds with each other. Back on the Section 31 ship, Tyler finds creepy-ass Leland with his like thing in his face. It was super creepy and weird. But then Tyler gets stabbed by Leland. But I'm sure he's perfectly fine because he gets on an escape pod, and he manages to warn Pike that Leland is bad. But then Leland beams down to the surface, and we get a badass Leland trying to take things out and stop things and get the data for himself. But then we have Georgiou coming in all crouching tiger style and just kicking butt. Fun little action sequence there that didn't feel like it was too much. Control kind of taking everyone out. Felt a little bit weird that one person could take out all those people, but I guess the fact that he's controlled by AI makes it imperceptible to phasers, I guess. And then they basically, Burnham has to let her mom go and get sucked back through time. I didn't know why her mom couldn't have the suit on anymore. It felt a little bit strange, but I guess they just both get sucked in time, so I don't know if she's going to be able to fix the suit. I was a bit confused on that, about why, like, was the suit damaged? I wasn't entirely sure. I didn't really catch it during my one watch through so far. Maybe it was explained better, but I was a bit confused about that. So please, if anyone out there can explain that to me, please let me know in the comments, or maybe I'll catch it on my second watch through later. But that was a fun little sequence at the end, good little bit of action, but a good, more emotionally resonant for Burnham, having to let her go. And then I liked the beat of Georgiou coming in and saving Burnham, basically paying off what we had just seen before, and paying off her character arc throughout this whole episode. And it was just sort of a small completion of her arc within the episode. And I think that's a problem that sometimes Discovery has, where it sets some stuff up in the episode that we know is going to pay off eventually down the line, but doesn't really pay off within the episode itself. So I like that there was sort of a minor completion of both Burnham's arc, Burnham's mom's arc, and Georgiou's arc, all within this one little sequence here. It really worked well, paid off all of their arcs in the episode, but also set them up for evolving more as characters going into the future. So just really, really, really well done episodic writing and also serialized writing in this episode, which is something that last episode did not do at all. set up a lot of arcs that really didn't ever fully complete within that episode in and of itself. So I sort of liked that this one felt a little bit more resolved in that sense here. Everything sort of wraps up and Section 31 ship gets away and Leland gets away, and that's sort of setting up where we're going to go for the rest of the episode and the season. I liked this great final small scene where Burnham's lost all hope and she's sort of watching scenes of her mother, and Spock comes in and comforts her. And again, since of what I was talking about with the two of them being at odds and foils to each other, and Spock saying like, you're at a spot where you feel hopeless, but all that matters is what you do right now, and you can take control of what you can do right now. Basically setting up the 3D chess, and they set up and play against each other. I really love that, and honestly I'm really finding that the chemistry between Spock and Burnham this season might actually be what I think is the best and most effective part of this scene and the episodes. You get this really sense that they do really care about each other, even when they're bickering and kind of having a sort of angry back and forth, that they do really, really care. I think that's the strongest part of the season and is really a testament to Ethan Peck's Spock, as well as Sonequa Martin Green as well. I absolutely adore both of their performances. And this small scene and this small way to end the episode, not a big cliffhanger, it was just, they're setting up chess and they're going to play chess. And that's a way that they can take a moment to sort of feel like they're grounded and in control of themselves and where they can control their future. Just a really, really strong, resonant, quiet scene to end on. Discovery tends to end on these like big moments, and this one just went quiet and soft, hopeful resolution to Burnham's arc, as opposed to a sort of depressed, sad one, and one that sort of works for both Spock and Burnham. Sort of they're trying to find their tethers in a world that sort of left them feeling adrift. Spock's sort of a little bit ahead in that process now because he started before and he's sort of felt lost, and now he's trying to find himself and ground himself, and so he's helping bring Burnham along and is becoming her tether, even though Burnham was Spock's tether in the first place. And I really love that chemistry between the two, and it's really building them up very well. When we look back at the end of the season, I mean, we'll see what's going to happen in the next few episodes, but I really think what will probably be one of the strongest pieces for me of the whole season is these scenes between Burnham and Spock. All right, well, that is my thoughts for this episode of Star Trek Discovery, Perpetual Infinity. I really hoped you liked this review. Couple notes to make. Last week, I released a video on Friday, but there was some weird like copyright stuff, and I think it kind of got lost in the shuffle. It was a look at Laurel, a detailed character analysis of her character, and especially since it looks like she'll be coming out next episode, I'd highly encourage you guys to check out that video. I'll have the link below. I put a lot of work in that video and I really love it, and I'm kind of sad that it might get sort of lost to the ether. So if you have a moment and you want some cool character analysis of a Star Trek Discovery character that I really love, check out that video below. Also, something I want to ask you guys if you want to sound off in the comments. Obviously, we're about to wrap up Star Trek Discovery in the coming weeks, but I want to continue doing these types of reviews and discussions with you guys. I want to ask you what you would be most interested in. Would you be most interested in me doing reviews of Twilight Zone, reviews of Game of Thrones, reviews of something else? I definitely want to do reviews of The Expanse when it comes out, and obviously I'll be doing the short treks in the Picard series when those come out as well. Or would you prefer something weird and different, and I can sort of do reviews of old Star Trek shows, like watch through Deep Space Nine or things like that, and sort of do episode by episode reviews of that, or anything else. So sound off in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts and ideas of where we can go next once Star Trek Discovery Season 2 has wrapped. And until next time, live long and prosper.